The Edmonton Oilers picked up their second straight win against the Nashville Predators 4-2. We're going to talk about everything that went right down in Music City.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Friday edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis. I want to thank everyone who's making Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day. Locked On Oilers, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, where you can place your first $5 bet and get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So on today's show, we are going to break down what went right for the Predators in this game from a micro level, from an individual player level, style, flow of the game. And we're going to start first segment. We're going to talk about how their depth did a really nice job tonight. We'll highlight Jeff Skinner individually, who had a really noticeable and really impactful game, including a goal. Our second segment, we're going to talk about how Conor McDavid, after very clearly hearing me talk about him on yesterday's show, saying he needed to find a way to get going, he got going, picked up his first of the year. We'll highlight McDavid's game. And then our final segment, we're going to highlight some of the guys who chipped into this performance in terms of how we can build off of this. We'll talk about the fourth line. We'll talk about Darnell Nurse. And of course, we will talk about Brett Kulak, who picked up 2 goals tonight as well. So one of the big themes I wholeheartedly believe in and feel is an essential component to building a quality NHL roster, and frankly, a quality roster in any sport, is a degree of specialization. You want guys who have individualized roles, who know what they need to do, and they do it well. You know, the reason Bill Belichick made "Do Your Job" his slogan for all of those years up in New England is the simple fact it works. When you highlight individually specialized guys who are really good at one thing, in football, you might just be a pass rusher. You might only get on the field on third down in obvious passing situations. In hockey, you might be a really good forechecker, or you might be really fast in a straight line, or you might be a really good, for the lack of a better word, spot-up shooter, where you get to a spot, and because you have a really good shot, you can score even if it's not a particularly dangerous chance. If you're a defenseman, maybe you're big, you block a lot of shots, you kill penalties. That type of specialization, it's a really important component to a well-rounded team, because the more specialized guys you have, the more different looks you're able to give the other team. And what do I mean by that when I say different looks? So you heard me talk a lot on yesterday's episode about the Oilers needing to diversify their offense a little bit to get their offense going, that they were going to need to simplify things, that they were going to need to get pucks on net, look for rebounds, look for deflections, look for ugly goals, because that, when you are struggling as a team, as an offense, there is no better play than getting traffic in front, flinging the puck at the net. When you fling the puck at the net with traffic in front, good things happen. You could argue 3 of the 4 Oiler goals, so that all the goals but the empty netter, are a product of that, of getting the puck on net and something good, something fortuitous happens, sticking with the play. So I talked a bit about Jeff Skinner after the Flyer game, that I really noticed him. And hockey isn't like other sports where if a player's noticeable, that doesn't necessarily mean they're having a good game. It just means they're around the puck a lot. And you can be around the puck a lot without doing a whole lot to actually impact the flow of the game. Noticeable does not necessarily correlate with a good game. I thought against the Flyers, Skinner was using his speed to put pressure on the forecheck. He was able to win some loose pucks. He was able to help facilitate the Connor Brown goal, which was very helpful in that game. And tonight, he was in and around the net front quite a bit. I thought Skinner was able to do quite a bit in this game with his speed, with his positioning. And this is a highly specialized player. At this point in his career, Jeff Skinner is a really good poacher. And poacher gets a negative connotation in hockey and in soccer as far as the work you do in creating offense. Typically speaking, we would characterize a poacher goal scorer as somebody who's opportunistic, who's around the net front. In soccer, it's somebody who scores a lot of tap-ins, or maybe they're really good in the air, scores a lot of headers. In hockey, it's the guy who they're going to cherry pick in the defensive zone, trying to cheat from going to defense to offense. It's the guy who's going to be the second wave. So when you have a shot on goal and that creates a rebound, the guy who crashes the net looking for that rebound, that's what I'm talking about when I say the second wave, because it's literally the puck comes in and then that guy who's crashing down, the second wave of attacker, that's something Jeff Skinner is going to be able to do. And his goal tonight came right after the Oilers power play had expired. The second unit was out there. He was out there with Corey Perry, and Perry had taken the puck to the net mouth, and that puck was loose. It was available, and it was a scrum down and around the net front. Saros was on his knees leaning, and ultimately ended up losing his helmet in the sequence. But Perry was in there jamming at it. There was a Predators defenseman in there jamming at it. And Skinner opportunistically bursted in and whacked his stick at the puck, got it in the net, and got the Oilers back in this game. So at that point, when Skinner scores, it is 1-1. When Skinner scores, it is 1-1 in the second. And Skinner scores to make it 2-1. And that shot is not easy. And I know Jeff Skinner is not a physical player. I know Jeff Skinner can get a bad rap for being one-dimensional. But I think now, A, at the stage of his career he's in, and B, the team he's on and the role they're asking him, it is very different. You know, when Jeff Skinner's making $9 million a year in Buffalo, for him to only have 50 some odd points. I understand why people felt he underperformed. He wasn't worth that contract. And I would agree with you. I don't think Jeff Skinner was ever going to be worth that contract. Even the day it was signed, I felt it was a really unnecessary gamble rooted in Buffalo's desperation to get any type of star caliber player there. And at this point in his career, Skinner is too talented individually of a player to really be what you would consider a third liner. I think on a lot of teams in the NHL, Jeff Skinner would be a second liner, and on the bad teams, he could arguably be a first liner. And the expectation coming into the season was that he was going to ride with Draisaitl and Arvidsson. But of course, after the Oilers' slow start, going 0-3 out of the gate, the Oilers, Chris Knobloch said, well, let's get our offense going. We can't score a lick, especially at 5-on-5. So let's throw McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman together. Let's dominate those minutes, and we'll figure out the rest. And so far, that has worked through 2 games. I don't want to make the strong correlation of, well, they got to keep it together now because they're on a 2-game winning streak. I think once the Oilers get going, I think once they're out of this little rut, once they feel like they have their feet under them, everyone's got a good idea of who's playing with who, then I think the Oilers can start to get closer to what they want their lineup to be, because we're in the feeling out process. Everybody's still kind of got to get a grasp on where we are and where we're going. So to tie a bow on the Skinner segment before we move on, him, Henrique, and Connor Brown, they won the scoring chance battle 14-8. They won the expected goals battle. They had 62% of the chances, and it provides a different dimension than most third lines because Jeff Skinner is a really physically talented hockey player. If you have somebody like Jeff Skinner on your third line, you have a really, really deep lineup. And then you have the luxury of having someone like Connor Brown, who's a really fast straight line skater, and somebody like Adam Henrique, who's really cerebral, has really good positioning. You combine that and you have a third line that's in the upper echelon. And look, I don't know whether or not Skinner's going to stay there all year. But even if he doesn't, I think having this in your back pocket as an opportunity, as a possibility, as just an option to have is something that not a lot of great teams have. You know, the Panthers last year in the Cup final, that Anton Lundell line, their third line, Lundell's a really good player. But you have someone like Skinner who can score 30 goals if everything goes right for him. You know, he's got a point in 4 straight games. The only game he hasn't scored in yet, he didn't score in, was the opener. But I like what I am seeing from Jeff Skinner. This is somebody who looks motivated, who looks opportunistic, and really is taking advantage of the opportunity before him. And that is really encouraging. And I think with time, the Oilers will get a better grasp of how they want to use their lineup. And having somebody like Skinner as like a 7th or 8th best forward, you have a really good hockey team. For all of Jeff Skinner's flaws, this is still a really gifted player and somebody who, when they're motivated, can do a whole lot. So we're going to take our first break of today's episode of Locked On Oilers. And when we come back, we'll talk about a vintage Conor McDavid performance coming up next, right after this break. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Sign up today and get an instant $50 when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. If you go over to the football tab on PrizePicks, you will see Saquon Barkley in a revenge game against his former team. His total, 83.5 rushing yards. Will he have more? Will he have less in a traditional revenge game? PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You heard me, folks. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. Head on over to PrizePicks today to get started. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Friday edition or late Thursday night edition, depending on when you're watching this and what time zone you're in. But you got to feel good. The Oilers have staved off the circling vultures, as I've described them a lot. There are a lot of people out there who do not like the Oilers, who have a vested interest in seeing the Oilers be miserable because they need narratives. When there aren't narratives around these big market teams like the Oilers, like the Leafs, that means the hockey media people actually need to come up with something to talk about. They need to actually analyze the hockey. And there are a lot of people who work in hockey media who don't particularly describe or analyze the game well. They're good at crafting narratives. They're good at projecting trades or free agent signings. There are a whole lot of people out there who just want to talk about transactions. And while I understand that's exciting, it enables everybody to be in on the conversation because everyone plays fantasy sports. Everybody plays video games where you're a GM and you try and make the right moves, put your team in a position to win. I know I've been playing a ton of NCAA 25 and being a really good coach and recruiting, but there are levels to this. And if you can accurately analyze a game, I'm skeptical of your evaluation as to what you think a player is worth via trade or as a free agent signing. So there is no player in this league better today than Conor McDavid. And it was fair to say that Conor McDavid was off to a relatively slow start. He didn't have a goal through the Oilers' first 4 games. He hadn't really had a signature moment. You know, he set up the Draisaitl goal in overtime against the Flyers, so that counts to some degree. He definitely made his impact felt there because he created that rush opportunity that Draisaitl was eventually able to crash the net on the rebound on and score. But tonight was a really imposing and strong performance. And yesterday's episode, we talked a lot about how Ekholm and Bouchard were taking a lot of the shots at 5-on-5 when they were on the ice with McDavid, and that he wasn't necessarily being as aggressive as he needed to be. And McDavid is not by trade a goal scorer. He just so happens to score a lot of goals because he gets opportunities and creates opportunities. And because of that, it creates a space and an opportunity for his line mates. And I think that's what you'll see when the Oilers are at their best at basically any point, whether it's on the power play or at 5-on-5. When McDavid is using his skating to manipulate the defense, it opens up significantly more space. If you go back and watch the McDavid goal, that sequence starts with him behind the Predators net. He gets the puck to Draisaitl on the puck on short side, bottom of the circle. Draisaitl rips a really hard shot. It rebounds out. Zach Hyman is in a puck battle. He's able to wiggle his control. That puck gets out to the point, gets to McDavid. The puck goes to the point. There's a shot. It dies on the way down and it lands right at McDavid's feet. UC Saros, the Predators goalie, is mid-moving to try and get in the lane of where he thought the puck was going. And because the puck just died, it gave McDavid more or less an open net. And I think the fact that McDavid was in the mix in that way, that he was in that space, that heavily contested, trafficked area around the net mouth, I think that bodes well for how he was feeling about his game tonight. I thought individually he had the puck a lot more tonight than he had in previous games. 9 scoring chances, 4 high danger scoring chances, created 2 rebounds, and had the second most individual expected goals of anyone on the team. And the fact the Oilers were able to get a McDavid goal off of the cycle is something I've been clamoring for a while. I've really complimented the third and fourth lines, and we're going to talk about the fourth line a lot actually in our final segment of today's show, so be sure to stick around. When the Oilers have the opportunity to really wear down the other team, you got to do it. You got to make the Oilers the Oilers have to make other teams play defense. And when you have your star players, your McDavid, your Draisaitl's, your Hymans, your Bouchards, willing to do the work of hard offensive hockey, and in an ideal world, yeah, you always want to be off of the rush. You always want to have 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s. But when you put your helmet on, you get down low, you win puck battles, you sustain offensive zone time, that shows me you are willing to work for your offense. And obviously, these are supremely talented athletes, some of the best, and in McDavid's case, the best in the entire world. But they have their habits. They have their tendencies. They like to create offense a certain way. But if you add this wrinkle, this dimension to how you attack offensively, it is going to open up so many more opportunities, because this is what playoff hockey looks like. And look, I know it's game number 5. They still have to get one more win to be over 500. But when you think about the Oilers in the postseason, they needed that extra little bit of oomph, that little bit of extra work to create offense. And McDavid from behind the net is exactly what you need, because if Draisaitl's there, he's going to be on the bottom of the right circle for the one-timer. And that one-timer is amongst the best in the league. I know the Oilers have yet to really get it going this season, but Draisaitl in that spot as the trigger man opens up so much, because then Hyman can crash down, because you have those 3 forwards, McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman, in a very condensed space. The defensive players are more likely to be in and around the net front, and that's going to open up space for Bouchard to take point shots. And if Bouchard's taking point shots, the defending players need to go out to the point to mark him, which in theory opens up more space for Hyman, Bouchard, for Hyman, Draisaitl, and McDavid. That's the nature of having such a talented group. Is it becomes pick your poison. If you let McDavid hold that space behind the net, okay, he's going to get it to Draisaitl on one flank, he's going to get to Hyman on the other, or he'll skate it to the half wall, he'll get it to Bouchard at the point, and Bouchard can let it fly from there. So I was really impressed with McDavid's game tonight. I do think they definitely have a little bit of work to do as far as the kinks of their offense and really trying to find a little more consistency. But tonight was a really good omen. And again, I said this about the win against the Flyers, and I'll say it again now. Getting this depth scoring, getting 2 goals from Brett Kulak, getting a Jeff Skinner goal, that type of offense, getting that secondary offense, it goes a long way with your big guys, because it takes some of the heat off of them and gives them more room. And like we've been saying, the more avenues to victory you have, the less reliant you are on luck, the greater your chances are of winning individual games, stringing together good streaks, winning playoff series, winning the Stanley Cup. So we are going to take one more quick break on today's show of Locked On Oilers. Then when we come back, we're going to tie a bow on the win over Nashville by highlighting some of the other depth players that had really nice games down in the Music City, coming up right after this break. Hey, NFL fans, you can enjoy the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Sunday morning, early kick, we got another London game. The Patriots going to London to play the Jaguars, who might as well stay in London, and the Jaguars are 5.5-point favorites there. My favorite game of the weekend, the Texans and CJ Stroud going up to Green Bay to take on Jordan Love and the Packers at Lambeau Field. The Packers, 2.5-point home favorites. The Saquon Barkley Bowl, of course. The Philadelphia Eagles heading on up to MetLife Stadium to take on the New York Football Giants, where the Giants are 3-point home underdogs. They're expected to get Malik Neighbors back this week, and Super Bowl rematch Chiefs Niners at, I almost said Candlestick, at Levi Stadium. 49ers 1.5-point home favorites. And today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. At Gametime, you can have the best ticket buying experience in the market. I got my tickets to go to Giants Eagles on Sunday to see the Saquon Barkley revenge game. I will be there in a Saquon Barkley jersey with duct tape over Barkley's name with Singletary scrawled on it in Sharpie. And the reason I use Gametime is the features on the app. Things like the seat view, where you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. If you're going to a concert, if you're going to a baseball game, a football game, a hockey game, you want to get an idea of what you're going to be looking at. If you're going to a football game, you want to be able to see the game. You want to be able to gauge down and distance. If you're going to a concert, you don't want to be stuck behind a speaker or a pole. The seat view has you covered. Lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And Gametime ticket coverage, where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Friday edition of Locked On Oilers as we tie a bow on the Predators game and get you set to go on into the weekend. The Oilers are still figuring things out. It is October. They are going to be a lot better by November than December. January. The goal here is to keep improving, to keep adding wrinkles, to keep adding components to your game. Right now, I feel quite good about the Oilers' depth. I thought, like I said at the first segment, I thought the Skinner line was really good. And then kudos to the Corey Perry, Derek Ryan, Vasily Podkolzin line. Not a ton of minutes, 9-10 minutes at 5-on-5, a little bit of power play time for Corey Perry, but they won their minutes. And everything I just said in that second segment about the Oilers' top guys grinding, making the other team play defense, all that good stuff, it rings especially true when it comes to the fourth line. And look, on most NHL teams, the fourth line is an afterthought. These are leftover pieces who might have one plus trait, who our goal in their minutes is to not get killed. The vast majority of NHL teams do not have four forward lines that they can roll interchangeably. And most teams, right, even good teams, their fourth lines, the goal is to not have a lot happen. And this group, the Perry, Podkolzin, and Ryan line, they did a nice job tonight holding offensive zone time, making Nashville play defense, and not even getting a lot of shots on goal. Only 5 scoring chances, only 2 shots on goal. They only had 0.03 expected goals, so you had to go 1 decimal place over. But Nashville didn't do a thing when they were on the ice. And if you have that in the back of your pocket, that you have the Perry line to throw out there to just kill 45 seconds again, I really liked Podkolzin's game. I know he had taken a penalty at one point, and it was a bad penalty to take, in all honesty. But what makes Podkolzin interesting is that he plays with a little bit of crash test dummy to him, and he likes throwing it around. He likes hitting people. And the Oilers don't have a lot of that right now, especially with Noah Vander Kane. Darnell Nurse is dinged up, so he's a little bit less inclined. And you know what? I was going to save it, but good on Darnell Nurse for finding a way to be impactful. You know, he has a really bad play on the first Nashville goal. He is a limited hockey player right now. He is physically compromised. He's really had a tough go as far as injury luck over the last handful of seasons. And his decision making has yet to reflect his new physical state. You know, you wouldn't run a marathon if you had a pulled hamstring. And that's kind of the conundrum the Oilers are facing with Nurse on the macro level, that he is physically compromised. He can't get healthy because they're in season, and he's still playing like he's healthy. He's still making decisions like he's his normal self. And until he accepts the limitations of his injury, he's going to continue to stand out as struggling. And look, I am not a huge proponent of fighting in hockey. I think for the most part, it's posturing, it's silly, it is clinging to a bygone era. These are multimillionaires who don't need to prove how tough they are. Like, I understand for them as individuals, it means something, but for the spectator experience, for the hockey experience, it doesn't do a whole lot as far as winning and losing. Sure, the Oilers ended up winning, Nurse fights, offsetting majors. Great. He felt he made an impact. It helped the team get a little bit of juice. I will give them that. The Oilers definitely played with a little more intensity after that fight. And then the one last person I wanted to highlight, I thought Calvin Pickard had a really solid game tonight. And look, nobody is expecting Pickard to be a world beater, but he hasn't played a lot of NHL hockey over the last handful of seasons. And getting him in the mix now, I know the Oilers don't play till Saturday. They very easily could have ran Skinner out there tonight, but being that they want to get Pickard some work, he's probably only getting one start a week, if that, for the first few months. And then once we start getting back-to-backs more frequently, the later into the season we go, then we'll start to see Pickard a little bit more. But I thought he was really solid, had a couple of really nice saves. And then Saturday night, man, we're going to get our first real measuring stick game. The Stars have yet to lose. The Stars are a really, really well-rounded hockey team, a rematch of the Western Conference Finals. Oh, I lied. The Stars lost to the Capitals tonight. I'm sorry. I was watching the Oilers, and I was watching baseball, and I was watching football. I apologize for not having an eye on the Stars score, but they did end up losing to the Capitals. But Western Conference Finals rematch, Jake Ottinger, fresh off the big extension, which is right there with Jeremy Swayman towards the upper echelon of the goalie market. Rope Hintz, Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston, Merrick Bork, Logan Stankoven. They've got a lot of talent. This is a very good early season iron sharpens iron opportunity for the Oilers. I will talk to you guys after the weekend, after that game against the Stars. I'm going to be very tired on Monday. I got a lot of stuff to do this weekend. Can't wait to watch some more Oilers hockey. Before we get out of here, if you could be so kind, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, throw the show that 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the alarm bell, hit the like button. Leave me a comment. What impressed you the most with the Oilers win over the Predators? I'll talk to you guys on Monday. Everyone have a fun and safe weekend. See you guys then.